Hey guys, our guest today is an active duty officer in the United States Navy, former vice president of Books by Vets, a board member at the S.H.I.N.E Foundation. He's put in 1,500 volunteer hours, raising over $500,000 as a fundraiser, provided seed money for 6 startup nonprofits. He's also an event coordinator and published author, dedicating 15 years of service to help 400 families pay off $6 million in debt. He's made it his mission to help the helpers. He has relocated an unbelievable 50 times, 50. 36 of those happened before graduating high school. He was in and out of foster homes as a child and survived 2 murder attempts. He's now blessed with a beautiful wife and 2 children. I'm honored to have him sit still long enough to do this interview today. Welcome to the show, host of the Nonprofit Architect Podcast, Travis Johnson.
Hey, Mike, thanks for having me on the show today. You know, I know what my story is, but it's always a little different when you hear someone else say it and you're like, wow, who is that guy?
Yeah.
That sounds amazing.
I mean, where do you start with, there's so many amazing numbers in there. There's a lot of numbers in there. And I wanted to make sure, usually I try to keep the bios light and so we can get right to the guest. But when there's that much that I was sorting through, preparing for this, I was like, nope, that's got to stay in. Nope, that's got to stay in. So 50 times, I mean, we're going to get to all of this, but the numbers are, $6 million in debt, 400 families you help. We're going to unload and unpack it all. What I'd like to do is, if someone's not familiar with you yet, they can find you at nonprofitarchitect.org. Also on Facebook and Instagram. You can go on Facebook, it's Nonprofit Architect Group that you'll be looking for. And on Instagram, it's at Nonprofit Architect. Travis Johnson, thanks for being here today.
Hey, I'm just glad to be upright, you know.
Yeah, after everything you've been through, amen to that. I always like to start with the story. This show is all about a good story. A lot of times it's a comeback story. When you and I met, I forget how long ago it was because it's all blending together. I would say 2-3 months ago, if not longer. You hit me with your story, and I don't think we were talking about having you on as a guest. And I was like, hold on a second, let me get you in my calendar. So the first thing I have for you is I want to say thank you so much for your service in the Navy. We all greatly appreciate that. And the amazing work that you're doing, as I listed off at the top of the show. But really, we're going to go all the way back to the beginning. So childhood for you was a rough environment. As I mentioned, it was in and out of 5 foster homes. You're in trouble with the law. I kept that part out of the bio, but multiple times you mentioned to me, and the 2 survived murder attempts. With all that turmoil and adversity that that you were dealt with, now you've become an honorable man. And I just love you to share how you really flipped the script. Not too many people can get out of a bad environment like that. How did you want to walk us through how you made that happen?
Sure. So part of the little details there, what people are like, oh, were you in the military? And you do a little math, and people are like, 36 times. Like it's unfathomable for most people. Most people
Yeah.
will never get 36 in their whole life, let alone their childhood. And when you include stats like 12 different schools, so what does that look like? It means in kindergarten, second grade, fourth grade, and seventh grade, I was in 3 different schools during those school years. And I know that's hard to even think about. There's like 36 times. Let's
The
just
kids have
say,
to deal with just going when I went from elementary school to middle school and sweating that out the day before school starts. And you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be at the same middle school by the end of the month, you know?
yeah, absolutely. So, if you graduate at 18, 36 moves means you moved on average twice every single year is the
Yeah.
average.
Mm-hmm.
And there were some years I didn't move at all. So some years I moved 5 or 6 times during
Mm-hmm.
that year. And it's interesting because I didn't understand. I didn't know that everyone else wasn't moving.
Yeah.
I
You thought this is what life is, right? You only
Yeah, it
know what
wasn't
you know.
like 4th grade, and I was like, "What do you mean you've been to this many schools? Like, how weird are you?" I was like, "What are you talking about? Haven't you
Yeah.
moved?" And they're like, "No, not even a single time."
Yeah.
And by that point in 4th grade, I already moved almost 20 times or more.
Yeah.
and you're like, I don't understand. Why are we moving so much? And
Mhm.
why isn't anyone else moving? I didn't understand. And when you're the child of someone with bipolar disorder, and every time they need treatment,
Mhm.
every time they go into treatment, you have to go live somewhere, whether that's with a family member in a foster home or some other situation. And then when they get home,
That's what I was yeah, that's what I was kinda looking to unpack. So, as a kid, you don't have the option, do you wanna move or not or stay where you're at? I mean, if your parent you go where your parents go, and sometimes people without parental care, it's a grandmother, grandpa, it could be the neighbor, whoever it ends up being to take care of this child. So it was, a parent that had bipolar, you said, and that kind of because of the medical treatments were in and out of different areas. Was it you were also hopping from state to state though too? It wasn't just like from one area to town, right?
right, most of the moves were in West Central Minnesota. There
Mhm.
was one time in seventh grade, we had just moved to a new town, of course. We moved to Starbuck, Minnesota, and I
Mhm.
went to Minnewaska Area High School because it's hard for these small towns to maintain high school. So it was this
Mm.
giant swath of area. And then through that school year, my mom joined a band, went on the road with a band, and then we drove out to meet her in like Dickinson, North Dakota. Which, if you're not familiar, because who the heck is familiar with North Dakota?
Mhm.
Minnesota's on one side of the state, and Dickinson's all the way across Minnesota. So we drove out for Christmas to go see her, and
Mhm.
there was a fight between my second stepdad and my mom, and she kicked him to the curb, and then we stayed on the road with the band, and
Wow.
we saw such glorious places as Sydney, Montana, Riverton, Wyoming, and Green River, Wyoming, before
Yeah.
she broke up with the band and headed back. So we
Mhm.
were doing
How old
uh
are you at this point? To paint the picture.
this is seventh grade, so probably
You're 12 and you're
11
touring
years
with a
old. I started
you're a
kindergarten.
roadie? You're a roadie with the band cruising around, huh?
Yeah, roadie. And this is, I mean, this is the early 90s, so people are, still smoking in bars and stuff. And
Mhm.
my sister and I are in the back room of a bar
Mhm.
with, just hearing the music and smoke's creeping in, and there's nothing going
Whatever's
on.
happening is happening. Nobody's stopping because there's a 12-year-old most likely, right?
Right. No one
Yeah.
cares. No one's stopping.
So do you feel like part of your story is that and the thing about life that is a beautiful thing is, we do get second chances, right? Human beings we make mistakes and we learn from them. And the greatest people in the business people in the world have failed more than anyone's ever tried. So, um, a lot of times I meet someone and like they tell me about their childhood, and it's like sometimes the most turmoil ends up turning someone into just a greater being. And I don't know if it's because you're stronger every time you get back up a little bit, just a little bit stronger, and then you become like titanium and nothing phases you anymore. I'm not sure what it is, but can you speak to having almost one thing that was for sure, it sounds like, is the unknown was consistently unknown, right?
Yeah.
So that became normal, like what we would consider, and I say I grew up and I'm very blessed with mother and father's 40 years marriage, like old school Italian, just everything was very family oriented for me. So that's why I'm just kind of picking your brain a little bit. So the unknown was kind of a common deal. So at
Mhm.
what point did you realize I need to like get settled. Like my feet need to be planted. I need to start to build myself up. Was there kind of a moment in maybe high school or college when you felt you needed to kind of become
Yeah.
your own man?
Well, I'm at 16, after my sister had stolen my car and I got my car back. I told my mom that I'm moving out. I'm moving in with grandma, and if you love me, you're not going to say anything about it.
Mm,
I moved out to live with her across town and never looked back. And it was the start of actually building a foundation for myself. I think too many people get hung up on the example they have in front of them, and they
mhm,
feel that they have to follow it like they have no other choice. Well,
mhm.
we all have the choice to accept or reject anything that's presented to us. Do we always have the capacity? No. And it wasn't, till I'm going to say matured, but it's not like any boy is mature at 16,
Sure.
right? This
Yeah.
is just not, one is not the other. But when
Yeah.
you realize that you have to take a stand for yourself, you have to
Mhm.
be nice to yourself and force your own boundaries and make decisions for you that are going to benefit you. in the long run because you don't have to say yes to the craziness.
Mhm.
You can say, no, thanks, I'd rather not.
It's almost a level of maturity in self-defense mode that more than it is like polished maturity. It's, I got if I'm going to get to anywhere that's where I'm gonna be proud of, like whether you're not thinking of it maybe that way, you just know like if you keep doing what you're doing, it's going to become trouble even more. And you had you had multiple situations of that. And then last thing, we're going to get right into the nonprofit side and pick your brain there because that's your area of expertise. But I don't want to bring someone on the show and just say, okay, talk about your expertise for 60 minutes. People are going to connect with Travis. They're going to care about who you are. So then once you start unloading all this great information, we feel like we understand where it's coming from and it's in context. So just to kind of get us there too, talking about the appreciation for life, you've had twice your life was almost taken. How do you reflect on that? And is that something that also kind of woke you up a little bit?
Well, anyone that's out there that survived a murder attempt, kudos to you, depending on what type of event it was. And most people aren't sure, what that might look like.
Hmm.
The two people that tried to kill me were living in my house. They were my sister and my mother.
Whoa.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
mean, wow.
yeah, yeah.
Were you awake? I mean, do you care on unraveling that a little bit?
Well, I was 9 when my sister chased me around the house with a butcher knife, lunging after me, trying to get me. I can't remember how we got there, but she was not happy with whatever the situation was.
Yeah.
And then I think I was 15. I had
You
taken
were
my
9, and how old was your sister doing that?
She was 8 or 7 or 8,
Okay.
so
Wow. Holy
very,
smokes.
very unusual situation.
Yeah,
Uh, she also has bipolar disorder and is not
sure,
taking medication
sure.
for it. Um,
Well, if
you know,
there's a takeaway right there, circle it, everybody.
yeah,
You know, yeah. You gotta get help. I mean,
yeah,
and
absolutely got to get help. And I don't know if she ever has. We haven't talked to her in probably 2 years now.
mhm,
Not interested in having that in my life.
sure.
And then my mother tried to kill me. We were having an episode. We were at her brother's house, and he had enough. And he's like, "You guys got to." We were just there for like the weekend, but he's like, "He's got to you got to get out of here."
Mhm,
I took her to St. Cloud to a hospital there. It was like 3 in the morning. I was 15. My sister was maybe 13 or 14,
mhm,
and uh, it was 3 in the morning. We got her intaked, and we were there waiting for paperwork to be signed or whatever. And we're just sleeping on a bed waiting to be discharged or brought to some kind of foster care or some other stuff.
sure.
Uh, and she climbed up on the bed and took a pillow over my face and tried to smother me. And I woke up, and luckily I was strong enough to get her off the top of me. And I grabbed my sister, and we hopped in the car, and we drove a couple hours north towards my dad's house.
Mhm,
Slept at a rest area for a couple hours before continuing on up there.
mhm. Is that
And
the
this
last
is
time
This is
you were there?
before, Google Maps and all that stuff, so I'm driving across
You're
Minnesota,
you're just
my
trying to
memory.
you're just trying to get as far away as possible, right? Was that
Yeah.
the last time you've seen your mom?
No.
Okay.
No, we have a very good relationship. When she it 'cause you can blame the person or you can
Mhm,
blame the disease, and you can
mhm,
blame the person for not taking care of the disease, and she wasn't taking care of the disease.
mhm,
When you look at mental health issues, especially something as serious as bipolar and type 1 bipolar disorder, comes with hallucinations, which I didn't
mhm.
know for the next 20 years after this incident. I didn't
I
know.
never knew that either. I'm glad you're
Yeah.
bringing this up because I'll just interject quick. I always when I've heard of bipolar and I know what it is, but I'm realizing I don't know completely what it is. I always thought it just was more of a mood swing kind of a thing. I thought I'm pretty positive my grandmother had it. Sometimes you see her, she was just more bubbly, and sometimes she just wanted to like be in the corner and not really talk a lot. But it wasn't anything harmful as far as like physical harm to anyone or mean or literally like causing someone harm. So I thought it was just a little bit of a mood swing disorder, but the bipolar sounds like it's much more. So why don't you? Because maybe I'm not alone, and really enlighten us on how important it is to get this taken care of if you have it or know someone that's dealing with it.
Sure. So a little bit about that is when you have it's mania and it's depression, right? When someone has the mania,
Mhm,
the whole house is clean, top to bottom, everything's scrubbed. They're up for 3 or 4 days at a time. They're not sleeping at all. They think they can take on the world, accomplish anything, and for the most part, they're right. They can do just about anything in that state.
mhm. So they're
Think of
highly
think of a poet
functioning,
like
they're
anything.
productive, yeah.
Yeah, and then the depression side of it, you're talking about PTSD, depression, suicide, anxiety, all of the worst parts. And then if you have type 1 bipolar, where you have hallucinations, there's situations that happen in their head that are real. They can pass a polygraph. For the FBI, they can 100% buy off on it. And obviously, no one else sees what they're talking about. So you
Mhm,
have situations where you should call the police because, there's a satanic ritual happening behind our house that she can see. She
mhm,
can describe in extensive detail, but it's not real.
mm,
So then you have things like Kevin Hines, who I got to meet a few years ago. He's someone that the demons told him to jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, and
mhm,
he did, and he lived. And he has a part of his book that's called Cracked Not Broken. The back half of that is how to be mentally well most
mhm.
days. And he now calls it the art of, oh,
Help me out, what's his name? I'm gonna look this up.
Kevin Hines. You can look him up at
Yeah,
kevinhinesstory.com.
and that was the Golden Gate, yeah, I think I remember hearing that story a couple years ago.
Yeah, he jumped off and he lived, and he's the one that connected the hallucination part to bipolar disorder for me. I didn't know about that until I was like in my early 30s.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
Now as when someone's dealing with it, do and you're trying to bring it to their attention that they're hallucinating, do they get, I would assume, and I don't like to assume, very defensive, and is that where arguments can really get heated?
It can be interesting. My mom has come to me and told me that she's Michael Jackson and that she's Jesus Christ and that she's a country music superstar. And so I'm under the impression that she has undiagnosed multiple personality disorder or
Yeah.
dissociative identity disorder.
No, you're
Um,
not surprised by anything at this point in your life, man. Your mom could call you and say she's Cher, and you'll just, here we go, another episode, right?
Yeah, yeah. If I talk to her, especially before she talks to anyone in the household here,
Mhm.
I gave her like 90 seconds to figure out really who she is at the moment, and
Right.
if we allow her to
Uh-huh.
be in our lives at all at that point.
It does sound like you guys from that point in time, I think everyone listening right now would be totally on board and understanding if you just avoided her at all costs. But it sounds like you've made a concerted effort to do as much as you can to help her personally. There's only so much someone can do. There's other partner needs to dance with you. It sounds like you've mended that a little bit. Is that true?
It is, and most of it was on my half. I had to understand what my role was. What is really helping? There
Hmm.
was a point in there my wife pointed out to me that I was really being the brain for her. I was doing all the thinking on behalf of her, and that's not really helping.
Right.
Spending money is not really helping.
That's dependency then.
What
Wait.
what really helps is holding them accountable to things like getting the right amount of sleep, going to bed at the same time every night, waking up at the same time every morning, taking your medicine on a schedule, eating properly,
Mhm.
getting out and exercising and having a job that's relatively stress free. There was a point in her life about 6 years where she was walking every day, eating correctly. She's
Mhm.
working at Casey's General Store making pizza in the back, a relatively low stress job, and everything was wonderful in her life. But
Mhm.
as soon as you stop taking that medication, and it's as easy as being out late, and you know what, I'm just going to crash on the couch, and you wake up, your first thought is, I didn't take my meds last night. I feel great.
Ooh, so
I
you
don't need the
assume it's
med.
okay. I don't need it. Didn't hit
Right.
yet. The
Yeah.
the 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 snowball didn't come down the hill yet.
Right. And as soon as you have that thought, it's like, well, are these people just lying to me? Do I really not need the medicine? And
Mhm.
before you know it, couple days, maybe a week or so later, you're in the full on throes of whatever it is. And it's not something that you can fix, right? It's not like you take a
Sure.
Z pack and after 10 days you're all better, right?
Mhm.
This is a struggle every day, just like alcoholism. One
Mhm.
day sober is a huge victory. And
Mhm.
one day being mentally well is a
It's like
huge.
taming the beast the best you can. That thing is there, it's alive. You gotta really just keep it kind of sedated. and I mean that talking about the thing coming out and having a big episode, right? I'm not
Right.
talking about someone who's just basically drugged out of their mind. Not That's not what I meant. So yeah, you gotta really kind of keep it confined as best you can. I really appreciate you opening up about that. I know it's not easy to do. I am blown away with the story, and I'm at the same time, the good news is having you on the show and doing some research on you. I know there's a lot of good that comes in your story, and that's the part that hearing how devastating that background is. It's like, okay, now the deep breath, and now we're going to start talking about some of the things that our audience can really get inspired by. And I want to hear when it kind of clicked for you, when your mindset and mentality went into that service above self mindset. And I know you've helped, reading it here, 1,500 hours you have in, probably more than that now as a volunteer, raised over $500,000. Was
Mhm.
that one major event or over time? And when did that service above mentality click for you?
Well, it took a lot of years because there was a
Mhm,
lot of healing in there. Getting away from the problem is one part of it,
mhm,
and then recentering it and working on building yourself is a whole different part. I'm gonna get to your question here in a
mhm.
second, but there's a piece in the middle there that we have to get to
Sure.
is making good decisions for yourself. I made three of the best decisions I ever made was finding the Lord, joining the Navy, and marrying my wife. There's a lot of other good decisions, but they weren't as monumental as those. Those three things there, they didn't care about my past.
Mhm,
Once you cross whatever the barrier is, they don't. Whatever that happened happened. They're
mhm,
willing to move forward with you. But like something in like the Navy for me, is it didn't matter where you came from. It didn't matter what happened in your life. You had this set of rules, you had this accountability, and everyone
mhm.
was playing on the same
Yeah,
playing
you and
field.
I could be standing next to each other. My story might, be different than your story, but everyone was being treated by the leadership equally.
Yeah. And
Uh,
once you have that place where the rules, the boundaries are known, you can
mhm,
then figure out how to navigate, the game of life or the game of the military. And I know some
mhm.
people will probably get grumpy with me calling it a game. It's a game. It's got rules, and
Yeah,
they teach you how to win.
that's a really great point. Is that I do feel like a lot of times the Army, the Navy, Marines, whatever division someone may go into that has kind of a really rough situation growing up, it almost is like a fresh start in a sense where like their character gets built there. If there's areas that weren't developed, you're going to get it developed 10x. If there's areas that were pretty developed, they may break it down and rebuild it up. And like guys come out of there just like a whole different human being, in a good way, because you're working for the first time in a long time. You feel like you're actually given a level playing field, and you're not always 28 steps behind the neighbor because of
Yeah.
what's going on behind
Yeah.
closed doors. I never thought of it that way, and I've seen people either that I know personally or read and hear about that the Army, or being in the military was the best thing that happened to them. I know there's other things that could come along with it, um, you know, post stress disorder and all that. That there's the negative side of it, but there's so many great things that come from it. And I appreciate you ironing that out. But is that where the seed was planted for the service above self?
Yeah, the seed was planted there, and it wasn't until about 8 years after that point you go through. You know, I was really the head of the household as a 9-year-old,
Mm-hmm.
right? So all that time you get to grow and mature and be who you are and become a person and kind of be a
Yeah.
jackass teenager. I didn't have that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So then from the time I joined the military till about 8 years in, I was really going through that phase. So I was kind of a jerk, at work and all these things. And it wasn't until I made the decision to change my circle of people that someone
Important.
called me out on something like they should have, right? Holding me accountable.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm not that person. And I was like, I am that person. I'm completely the person that they were talking about. So I accepted that feedback, and then Jim Rohn says you were the average of the five people you hang around with. And I looked around my circle, and all those guys were jerks, and they were doing things they shouldn't be doing and being in places they shouldn't be doing things they shouldn't do, and nothing was helping them grow. So
Mhm.
I slowly weeded out those people and I replaced them with people that I wanted to be like. I wanted to be more godly. I wanted to be a better husband. I wanted to do well in my career. I wanted to go to college. I wanted to do those things. So when I
Mhm.
replaced those people, all of a sudden the world really opened up for me. I went from having to get a waiver to join the Navy due to my criminal record. At the time growing up, I knew more people in the justice system, you
Sure.
know, judge, the police, and all that stuff
Yeah.
than I knew in the community.
Right.
I knew
Yeah.
more people in the official side of the government than I
Yeah.
did know my neighbors,
Just yeah. Yeah.
right? And
Unbelievable.
so I went from the lowest rank in the Navy to
Mhm.
applying for an officer program, and I got selected. And now I fly on this guy right here behind me in the picture.
Mhm. Yeah.
Um, but that
Un
was the big shift for me was there. And then I
Mhm.
went through college and I went through flight school and I got my wings and I finally felt like I was in a place that I wasn't in scarcity mode. I wasn't in survival mode. I wasn't
Mhm.
fighting for every inch. And then I looked around and I was like, I guess I'm in a community now. How do I be part of a community? I didn't know. I was in probably my early 30s. I was like, I don't know what it's like to be a good citizen. I have
Yeah.
no idea.
Mm.
I had spent my entire life to that point just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And I asked around at churches, like, what do people in the community do? And they're
Mhm.
like, well, they volunteer, they serve on boards, they do fundraisers, they're involved in the community and making it
Yes.
better. And
Unbelievable. Yeah.
before I know it, I show up at a couple of networking events, just wanting to show up, not knowing what to do, but showing up, looking good, having a great attitude, willing to help, and
Mhm.
that opened the door for everything. I got my story published in a book with Books by Vets. I said, "Hey, how can I help you?" They said, "We need board members." So I became a board member. Then I became a board member of another nonprofit, and we put together great concerts with Wanda Jackson, Merle Haggard, B.J. Thomas, Chris Christopherson, Alan Parsons Project. A little bit older crowd, but it
Yeah.
brought the money in. We raised about a half a million bucks in a couple of years
Yeah.
and had a lot of fun with it. And then I got stationed over in Bahrain, which is a small island nation in the Middle East. And I was like, how
Mhm.
am I supposed to keep doing all this cool nonprofit stuff I'm doing? And the idea came up to start the Nonprofit Architect podcast
Yeah.
to help you build a stronger nonprofit.
Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is, you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today.
My God. Guys, what so much to unpack there, but the big takeaway for me that I just heard is that you're not defined by the cards that you're originally dealt. Like, you were able to thankfully get away from that, but you also had awareness. There's a big thing that you before anyone can correct anything, you need to realize it and have awareness. Otherwise, they'll never correct it. Whether it's a little thing like, having a weird thing you do, or something massive like you need to change your character or just like really turn it around. So you're not defined by the situation you came from. You started to define your character over getting around the right people, the right influence. You mentioned Jim Rohn. You don't just wake up and Jim Rohn's there. You went and you were seeking out content, which now we call it, but back then it was just books or DVDs or CDs or even tapes or records. And so you just started to get the record in your head straight,
Mhm.
right? You said you seek God. Later on, you found your wife and you guys connected and just continued to build. And this is the word here, foundation. Your foundation started to get right. The people you had in your everyday life, the people you brought into it, and you're building on it every day. So, guys, if you're listening to this and you're not where you want to be, look at Travis's situation. Does it get any more polarizing than where you start and where you're at currently. And I know something about Travis. He's not done. I mean, he's smiling right now because he knows he's still going. He's still going. And when gets this officer opportunity in the Navy, he knows that that's just the beginning of something really great to happen. Not I've arrived. We don't arrive. We just keep going. We just continue to be great. The other thing in this whole story is everything. If you really think about how things happen for you, even the bad, crazy situations with two near-death situations and stuff, if you later reflect why, instead of saying why me, and you just stay compacted down by your past, most likely you end up staying there. If you flip it upside down and put your hands up and go, this happened for me because now I have awareness and I have all these things that I can become a better person, and you can apply it to life. Look at where that can take you. It can take you to doing a fundraiser where you're raising over $500,000, right?
Yeah.
In a short period of time as a volunteer. And he could have just been happy to be a regular citizen and just like chilled out, because it's like, holy smokes, this is what it's supposed to be like. I can kind of take a breather. And it was a breath of fresh air. And he said, nope, now it's time to start serving. And I love that, man. So I just want to give you like a virtual fist bump for that. I love it, man. So you mentioned the podcast, again, Nonprofit Architect. Love the show. I'm subscribed over there. People can check it out again, nonprofitarchitect.org. All the links are there for you. And we're going to dive in now to talking about nonprofits. So I was going to ask the question of like what mistakes people make or what are hangups, but I want to flip it to the positive. So what are some key things that a nonprofit can do to be successful?
Sure. Key things that nonprofits can do to be successful. Really, there's three main areas in the nonprofit world. You've got the admin side, read that as your board, your compliance, making sure you're straight with the IRS. You've got the impact that you're trying to make. That's your mission statement, your programs that you're delivering, how you're impacting the community. And then you've got the how the heck am I going to pay for this side? You've got the fundraising and what that looks like. And when you've got those three things in order, things are going to be happening for you.
Admin, impact, fundraising.
Admin, impact, fundraising.
Cool.
Absolutely. We need to create a nice little acronym that makes sense for that to work. But
yeah,
we'll figure that out someday. I'll come back with the cool acronym.
You might need an extra letter. Yeah. So what are some actionable items you can give them? Like they're up and running and they're setting up their admin team, which is kind of sounds like the first steps, figuring out what impact they're going to make. And then, okay, cool, we got this thing we want to do and we know where we want to do it and how we want to do it. Then it's the fundraising. So what are some actionable steps of like, okay, this is what it realistically looks like?
You have got to build your network. That's relationships. That's people that can help you. That's people you can help.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to then ask.
Mm-hmm.
Ask for money, ask for support. There's not a big surprise out there. People understand that if you are a nonprofit, you are likely going to ask them to help either with your time, talent, or treasure. Time to help volunteer. Treasure might be money or other relational capital. Talent might be extending their network to you to help you out and help you build stuff. People expect and understand that you're going to ask for things. I was talking to a gal in right outside Fairfield, California. I can't remember the small town name. And I was like, how many people are in your neighborhood? How many people are in your area? And she's like 30,000. And she had just got done talking to me for like 2.5 hours about rescuing feral cats. Not a topic I'm particularly interested in, but she had so much passion, so much excitement for all the ins and outs. And I was like, wow, money must just be flowing into your accounts. And she's like, it's not. And I'm like, why not? Are you not sharing what you just shared with me? And she said, no, I'm scared of the no. And I was like, well, just so you're aware, every day you don't ask, you're guaranteeing yourself 30,000 no's.
Yeah.
The only chance you have for a yes is if you ask.
Right.
And if you're this passionate about it, people can't help but be electrified by your presence. So sharing your passion, your mission, and no one cares about your mission statement. Nobody. Like I'm in the military. There's 53,000 veteran organizations. No one cares particularly that you want to help veterans.
Mhm.
What they do care about is the impact that you're actually making. Like, hey, I know there's 53,000 of us, and here's what we're doing to make an impact. And here's this story, and this story, and
Mhm.
this story, proving that our stuff actually
The
works.
results of, okay, if I give you $100, what are some of the things I can expect that you're going to do with it? Oh, you built up these new churches in this area, or whatever it might be that you're
Yep.
doing, and they can feel that it's going to great use. And um, I I was honored. I was actually selected as or I was nominated for Man of the Year for the LLS organization, Leukemia Lymphoma Society.
Awesome.
I have a he's now three little cousin that's was battling through leukemia. Thankfully, it seems he's doing a little bit better now. And so it was heavy on my heart when a friend of mine said that she was the marketing campaign director in Buffalo, New York, which is where I'm from. It's the first year they're doing it, and she kind of looked like she was like, help me out here, man. I need some people to help raise, like, hit our big goal. And it's the
Yeah.
first year. And she knew I had quite a big network. And I had to pray on it and kind of meditate on it. And because I was already like sinking as far as all the things, I always sign up for way more than I can do in 24 hours. And I had to tell her, like, oh, I really want to do this. Is there maybe something I can do? And then I was listening to a song, and the lyrics in the song basically were kind of my sign. I was like looking for that one more shine of light that said, "Go and do it," right? And and so I got back to her and I said, "Let's do this thing." And it was last November, and it was pre-pandemic. The reason I bring it up is we had to change our complete campaigns because we had all these big in-person events, hundreds of people planning to go, the big gala. We had to do it all virtually. Every meeting was on Zoom. Which actually, you know what? I'll share just some insight is that opened things up for my mindset because originally I was thinking about Buffalo. And then once it was like on Zoom, I had my friend in Colorado helping out, and everyone was helping me out. My five people,
Yeah.
closest friends that were helping me, didn't need to be planted within 5 miles from me. They were all over the country. And I had a friend that was in Vermont helping out. And so, but it was a struggle as far as doing the big events that usually are the money makers. So, reason I bring it up is I'd love you to tell us, as we're recording right now, we're still in the middle of the pandemic. There's
Mhm.
fundraisers that are starting, there's fundraisers that have been going on. How has it really impacted, and what can you suggest to get through it during this time?
That's a great question. What I will say is if you are a nonprofit and you have dialed back your fundraising during
Mhm.
this time, you're doing it wrong. And I say that because everyone that's chosen that path has made less money and a lot of them are closing their doors. Their mission didn't vanish, but somehow
Mhm.
they forgot to keep asking for money because people understand that in a pandemic situation, they're going to be needing to give more money because
Right,
just because your personal situation was impacted negatively doesn't mean everyone's was. Like
right.
organizations that continue to ask and went virtual, like Mike's talking about, and went nationwide, they had record years of fundraising
Mhm.
because you might lose the $1,000 and below donors, but you know what you gained? The
Mhm.
5,000 and above donors because
Mhm.
they understand that they have the ability to make the impact in these tough times and they're going to do it, but only if you ask them and include them.
So the guy who won in Buffalo is did exactly what you just said. That theory proves to be true. I was getting through my network, and I was grateful for every single dollar, and I truly mean it. I was getting 25, $50, $1,000, 500, 25, 25, 25, bunch of them. I had probably one of the most quantity and dude, totally like, it wasn't so much about winning for me. Everybody's a winner when you're talking about fundraising. And I know that's not trying to be like participation trophy. It's true though. Anyone who helps out with a donation is really a part of the winning team.
Mhm.
But the guy who actually won Man of the Year in Buffalo had, I don't know, maybe a couple dozen donations if I remember, because it was listed on the website. But he was getting 20 grand from the big dogs and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
he, it's the smarter, not harder mentality. And I was trying to be smarter and harder. I was just doing everything I could, man.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Yeah.
and it was great. Like to see, I remember on the night when they announced how much he raised, I was like, how the hell did he pull that off? But it was just it's having those connections in the organizations that we're saying, yeah, we're willing to, even in a pandemic, write you a check for 15 grand. Boom, here you go.
Yeah.
So you're saying you gotta, instead of pulling back, you gotta double down right now.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Your mission doesn't go away. Say you're feeding the homeless. Do
Mhm.
you think there's going to be less homeless people to feed just because there's a pandemic?
Yeah. No,
Do they not deserve food because some people are struggling?
right.
How
If
many
not,
people are going to die in that situation if they're not being fed?
mhm.
You have to double down. You have to make it work. You have to push harder.
Yeah. And the thing is, how do I put this into making sure I'm not, offending people who are givers, because we're grateful for everybody who gives, but maybe they were giving 1% or 5% before. Now, and they could have always given 10. We're getting from the 3% giver to maybe give 10, and the next guy from $25 in the envelope, he can do 75, and he's not going to blink, and he just before did 25 because he just felt good about it. So you get a little bit more from the people who were giving last year that are still doing okay financially. Maybe they give a little bit more. You can even, like you said, you're asked getting a no for $25 is just as easy or hard to get no for 2,500. So
Yeah.
just get in front of the right person is my 2 cents. I would say is just try to reach up.
Oh, absolutely. And those of you listening out there, if you can give $100 right now, I would rather you give $10 a month.
Mm,
If you can give $1,000 right now, I'd rather you give $100 a month because those monthly recurring donations, even if it's $5, is far more impactful than your one-time donation. Because
mm,
if you give it one time, then that organization has to figure out next year how to get it again.
mhm.
Every month and every week, they have to figure out how to get the next one-time donation, the next time one donation. If you tune in to my show, and I hope you do,
Yeah.
right? If you're a nonprofit, if you're in fundraising, if you're in that world and you want to know how to do it better, tune
Mhm,
into my show, please, please, please. We give you the how to do the thing to make it better.
mhm,
I had Stephen Kuhn come on, and he talks about the magic of micro donations. He's helped 3 different nonprofits set up their website to invite guest bloggers, get 250 guest bloggers to come in. They already take their content they're creating, you just host it on your page, and then your page becomes something other than a digital pamphlet for your organization. It becomes a hub of information. People are going to go back over and over and over again to get fed about the thing that they care about. So
mhm,
you don't have to, Travis, I don't have time to create a blog. Don't create a blog. Host a blog. Let other people that are already speaking in your industry come in and talk about what they're already talking about. And
mhm.
really, they just carbon copy you on the thing that they posted, and you post it on yourself. Right? You get the
So
people
good.
to your site over and
Yeah.
over and over, and then you ask them for three,
Mhm,
6, or 9 bucks a month. 3, 6, or 9 bucks isn't going to break the bank. When
mhm.
you can get 200,000 people to say yes to $3 a month,
Right.
there's 600 grand a month coming in. And then if you lose 200 donors, you don't really
The
notice you
end of
lost.
the world. Yeah. That is so good. So that's playing the, hey, let's keep it beneficial for all parties. You like the recurring revenue because
Mhm.
and that's the same thing with me running a business. It's like I'd rather know that I got someone in for 12 months that when next month when it's the 1st of March, I'm going to look at my calendar and know I got these 17 projects to complete this month, right? Instead of waking up and going, I need to find 17 projects to go do. It's
Right.
already your foundation is built. We talked about that word earlier. So even if it's a little bit less, you'd rather know that it's there instead of chasing $100 new every month. You'd rather have 10 people giving $10 every month, right? So
Well,
that's one thing. I love
helps the
that. Go ahead.
organization plan. It helps them plan. I had a gal that was feeding the homeless in Oklahoma City, and
Hmm.
she got a big check for like 20 grand. She's like, I want to get a building. I was like, that money is going to dry up soon. I
Hmm.
was like, what do you really need? And she's like, well, I really need a commercial kitchen. I was like, no, you really need access to a commercial kitchen. So she was able to find a church that had a commercial kitchen that was willing to rent it to her for 500 bucks a month.
Hmm.
Instead of buying a building or getting
20
into something
grand.
that cost her 5 grand a month, she got what she needed for 500 a month. So
Right.
instead of getting that one big donation and then spending the rest of the year chasing matching donations to try to make the rent, she
Hmm.
found something that worked for her. Now, if
Hmm.
that 20 grand would have been $2,000 a month,
Hmm.
she could have easily planned out what she was going to do as an organization
Hmm.
instead of just chasing the money. We
Such a
want
great
to say
takeaway. Yeah.
no to more work and say yes to more donations.
And you just said another thing too is the application of someone might want to volunteer their time, and they're like, oh, I got to put all this time into running the blog or managing the blog. And you said, no, just create the framework and let other people add to it, right? Actually, one of the beautiful things LLS did was they give you a website. There is a blog on it. It's super easy to manage. It manages itself. You just have to kind of schedule the posts and stuff, and you can have people on your team do it, right? But you're saying build the foundation. If you're like a team leader or on the organization, build the framework, and then let everyone could chip into it. Not only are we talking about money, we're talking about, can you give an hour a week? Can you give 3 hours on this weekend? And then all of a sudden that framework starts to be built up. That's such a valuable takeaway, whether we're talking about nonprofits or everyday business, simply getting some help out in a situation you might need, right? Dive right in now. We're talking about nonprofit, the Nonprofit Architect podcast. You chose as a marketing tool and branding tool to go down the podcasting channel. I'm having you on my podcast as we record this, and I appreciate you being here. Why podcasting though? Talk to our audience that's thinking about launching their nonprofit. What makes you choose that as a medium to connect with your audience?
Boy, I tell you what, I am glad you asked that question. Mostly because I just put together a podcasting, our ultimate podcast guide that talks about all these things.
Yeah.
We have
The old
had,
alley-oop, I threw it right to you.
yeah,
Bam.
and alley-oop, yeah. I'll give you a link to the PayPal to throw in the show notes. If someone wants to send me $27 for this thing, please do.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. I got like 15 or so reasons in my guide of why podcasting is the thing.
Mhm.
If you want to start a podcast, you can do it for free if you've got a cell phone and you go to Anchor.
Mhm.
Start it for free today with the equipment you already have. What else can you start for free today? Can you start a blog for free? Maybe.
Mhm.
But who has the time to read anymore? People are so busy. They're running errands. They're working out. They've got all these emails they've got to read. They don't got time for more reading. They don't maybe even have time for video, but they can have time for passive audio. And if you call it no extra time, things like going grocery shopping, you are listening and learning the same time you're checking things off your list at the grocery store. You spend an hour and a half anyways.
Mhm.
Don't take away time from your family. Don't take away time from your work, your business, or your nonprofit. Get in the audio game, get in the podcasting game, and do these things for no extra time.
Mhm.
Build and connect to your audience. Your audience wants to know what it is that you have to say. And if you do an interview show like Mike's doing and like I do, you don't have to have all the answers. You just got to come up with some questions and you
Right.
let the guest fill in all the content.
Mhm.
Then you take every question and answer using a program like I use called Headliner to create an audiogram, and you get a 30-second to 3-minute clip to then post on your page, onto your website, onto your blog, onto your social media that you don't have to come up with. You don't have to say, what am I going to tell my people today? It's already created for you. You just have to take it and repurpose it, and all the content creates itself.
Yeah. Well, obviously, I'm pro podcast. My company, Social Chameleon, is a podcasting company as well. And I just want to add to that. And I appreciate you sharing that, because when I decided to start Mic'd Up, I'll share this quickly. It was a passion project. It was something that I wanted to have people like Travis on the show to unravel these amazing stories that are designed to inspire people to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. It was something I was like, okay, how am I going to find an hour a week to interview someone? And then I'm going to create the content. And then I realized, yeah, there's applications out there like Headliner, which I've used. And the thing I love about it is you just set yourself up for a whole week of content. I pull out quotes from the interviews of my guests. I do a video promo, usually 1 to 2 minutes, because that's everyone's attention span today. You're lucky if you get a minute of someone's time, and you're grateful when you do get it. And it just sets you up for consistently having content. And you don't want to just put content out to put content out. It's quality, because your guests that you're going to have on the show, you're not going to invite anybody on. Cousin Carl, hey, come and just talk about nothing. We're having people like Travis on the show. And then I realized that it's more of a time management situation people get into. And one of my clients who I was doing video testimonials for, I did this beautiful testimonial that they loved. And they saw me launch the show and they said, Mike, can you can you do our podcast for us? And I was like, I never thought about actually getting hired to do this, but I knew a lot more than they did. And all I did was teach myself for a few months. And I launched my show for, like you said, $0, except I didn't do it on Anchor. I did Libsyn. So it was like $20 a month. No
Yeah.
big deal.
I'm on Libsyn.
The cost of lunch, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, this thing just started to take off like crazy. People wanted to be on the show. People were asking me how I did it. And I pivoted my social media marketing business to a podcasting production business and distribution for those that literally want to go like this: record, stop, upload it to Google Drive, send it to me, and they don't even have to do anything. So it's that easy nowadays.
That's what I do.
That's it.
That's exactly what I do.
But
you mentioned a good point there.
No, go ahead.
You bring on people that have more authority and knowledge and credibility than you do, and then you borrow that authority, knowledge, and credibility, because every time you interview someone, you're, whether you know it or not, you're working in your own personal development. You're making yourself better for your family, for your clients, for whomever else is going to be in your network. You're building yourself up, and you're building them up by giving them the increased exposure for what they're trying to do. You're letting them get their message out, and you're benefiting at the same time. And if you have a business or a nonprofit, you can use it to promote your own products or services. Like I just talked about the podcast guide. Mike just talked about Social Chameleon and what they do. You can sell your own stuff. If you're in the real estate game and you're not podcasting, you are missing out.
Yeah. Here's the thing. A lot of people say, well, what's in it for you? A lot of families highly critiqued me knowing how much crazy things I was doing. They're like, you don't have time for it. The value for me in it is meeting people like Travis. Now he's in my network. He's an email, text message away. I have 67 guests personally that became friends. They were people that I was just only a second or luckily a first connection on LinkedIn. Now I interview them for an hour, and now they're chatting with me all year. You know, a lot of people were reaching out to me because living in Buffalo and the Bills had a really good season. There are people that my phone was going off just with people I interviewed 6 months ago saying, hey, man, happy for you when the Bills won a playoff game. And you just realize that your network is growing. And then I also learn from the value of the things that are on the show. I'm like a student. I'm over here. I literally take notes, guys. I'm not just here just sitting back. Like I take notes. And then the best part, I got my notebook. The best thing too is I listen to my own show, not because I like to hear myself talk, because if you guys think I have a downloader in my head of everything my guests say, that's not true. So what happens is 2 months from now, I'm going to listen to this interview and forget about the crazy story about maybe some of the things you talked about in the beginning. I might be having a rough day. And all of a sudden, my perspective just punches me in the throat and says, Mike, stop being a baby. Go and do something great today, right? And I learn from my own show consistently, and it's a beautiful thing. So that's a long way for me to say, what's the value in podcasting to the people listening right now? It's helping the audience. It's helping the guests grow their audience. You're learning from your guests. You have more content to produce because people want to see you're doing valuable things. Don't just get on a microphone and talk about nothing. Talk about valuable topics people actually want to follow you for. And that's beautiful. So thank you for getting that out as well. So how about this? You know, you went and reached out to some influencers, or at least got their content. You were reading some books. It sounds like Zig Ziglar. No, it was Rohn, right? Jim Rohn, similar guy. Zig is in the same conversation. You got, a lot of people know Tony Robbins. I love Ed Mylett. There's these inspirational leaders out there. I don't like the word motivational, because motivating someone to do something is just to get them to do the task. Inspiring them to do it makes them want to actually do it and continue to do it. So inspirational figures, what do you find is your biggest influence? Is it books? Also, what kind of podcasts do you enjoy listening to?
Well, I really don't listen to a whole lot of podcasts. I do audiobooks. I used no extra time, to listen to 60 audiobooks in 2019.
And I know you're on Audible now, right? So there's a little plug if people want to listen to.
Yeah. I'm on Audible. I'm on Amazon Music. I'm on Alexa. You can say, Alexa, play the Nonprofit Architect podcast, and it will play, which is just mind blowing for me.
Cool.
I want to get better. Oh, my Alexa just.
I was gonna say, where's? I have Google over here, so
I start talking in the background. Here's the deal. Whether it's with books, podcasts, audio content, whatever it is,
Mhm.
you can take a book. I've got one right here from my guest, Alan Stein Jr., Raise Your Game. This
Mhm.
guy has no business being one of my guests.
Sure.
This guy has worked with Kobe Bryant, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry.
Mhm.
He's a basketball guy. I brought him in to talk about leadership.
Mhm.
And it took me a couple of emails to get back and forth because he wanted to make sure that he was going to provide value to my audience. A book like this is your life hack to 40 years of experience,
Right. Every
someone's
book.
expertise.
Yeah.
And when you're something like a podcast host, you don't have to pay for his $20,000 course. You can interview them and ask them whatever you want to ask them
Right.
and get down and dirty details. Is it also going to provide, value for your audience? Sure, it will. But
Yeah.
man, is it going to provide value to you? Let me tell you.
Like I'm diving into traction. Gino Wickman right here. Everybody, you got it next to you. Come on.
Do you know what? I do have his audiobook. I think it's like
I saw you going to grab something. I thought you had it with you, but I'm pointing at this book. It just happened to be the book sitting right next to me. What was it? $20 I spent. This is not $20. This is my next $1 million idea right here. I just got to unpack it and figure out how to turn my business. That's what this is get a grip on your business. Some days I feel like I got one, and other days I need to reevaluate. And we're talking about reading or listening to audiobooks while you're at the grocery store, while you're driving to get gas, while you're going to pick your daughter up from school, whatever you're doing. And it's not about the $6.99 you paid for a book online or whatever, or the Kindle version or whatever. It's what you're going to do with that information. And so many great takeaways. I call those mic drop moments, man. I would drop this thing, but I don't keep the budget, right?
Yeah.
Gronk spiked this thing on the ground. This is not meant to be a curveball. And you said you tuned into a couple episodes, so you may have known this was coming. But if you could be known for one thing, what would that be and why?
If I could be known for one thing and one thing only, it would
Mm-hmm.
be that I'm the person that's going to change your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I say that because I really want to get into schools and I want to talk to kids. I want to share my story and know that whatever they're facing, they can choose to take steps to make and create their own story and do whatever it is that they want to do. There was so many people that told me that I wasn't good enough, that I couldn't do it, and you can use that to create a roadblock to stay in your way, or you can use that in your fuel to fire your rocket to get past all of that stuff. You can make the change. You can decide today that, you know what, I'm going to put down this double cheeseburger with bacon because it's probably not the best for me. I can choose to say, I know I'm going to go out with this friend and I know I'm going to get in trouble. And I can choose to say, you know what, maybe next time, or let's do something during the day.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe you say, you know what, I want to go talk to that girl. And instead of saying, no, I didn't want to go do it, you go and talk to that girl. You make that new friend. You read the new book. You learn the podcast. Whatever the thing is, you give it a try and do it, because there's no way that I should be where I am today. By all the statistics, I should be in a gutter somewhere with a needle hanging out of my arm with 2 or 3 kids from 2 or 3 ladies, and I should be a big pile of shit.
Mm-hmm.
I should be, according to all the numbers. But I had the choice to do something different. I had the choice to say yes to a good wife. I had the choice to say yes to opportunity. And I had the choice to say yes to Jesus in my life. You have the opportunity to say yes, and you have the opportunity to say no to all the extra things that everyone wants to do for their benefit and not for your benefit. You have the choice to enforce your boundaries, be nice to yourself, and say, no, I don't want that toxic person in my life, regardless if they're my mom or my sister. You have the choice to do whatever it is that you want to do. If you're in law school right now and you realize that it sucks, go surf for a living. You have the choice. Are people going to like it? Guess what? They're going to like what you pick most of the time, anyways. But you know who's going to have to live with it? You are. Make the decisions for you to get better, to take control of your life, and to do something better for yourself today.
Wow. That is the mic drop moment of the episode. That is what I want you guys to go back and listen to a couple minutes of again. And that's going to be the moment I know when I'm listening to this in a couple months and kind of forget that that's coming and bam, it's going to hit me, man. How good is it to be empowered, everybody who's listening? Maybe you're having a bad moment. You're having maybe a business deal just fell through and you're really hurting right now if you're listening to this and you feel it. It's in your guts. You can change how you react to it, what you're thinking, what you're feeling. You just look, one team won the Super Bowl this past Sunday, one team lost it, right? The guys who lost it, they can lay on the ground now for the next several months and just feel like complete losers, or they can go and get in the training room. They can watch the tape. They can come back and try to get back to that game again and finish the job next time. And have that killer instinct of it's okay to not be okay. And that's what you're saying is you realize what your past could have led you down. It's okay to acknowledge that that was my past. You're saying you change the script in your head. It's that record in your head. Now kids are going, what the hell's a record? It's that podcast feed in your head, right? It's that download in your brain that says, go and change it, right? And every day isn't going to be perfectly how you outlined it the night before, right? But what you can do is you can set yourself up for success and then reevaluate when things don't go right. Just realize, you have to realize it. Remember that word I said earlier? You can't realize it without awareness. Understand things still need to improve if you're not happy with where you're at. But the best part about it is that you can change how you're thinking in the next second, right? And that's God willing. Not every, like we talked about, there's some people that do have some mental things where they don't always get to control what they're thinking. But if you're listening to this right now and you do have control over your next thought and you're not having the best day, think about what you can do. What's your next task on your to-do list that's going to make you feel confident that you're doing the right things. And man, Travis just unpacked that. That was amazing. Couple questions. I'm going to let you go. I know you have an important interview to get to. You're the man that everyone wants. We're talking about sitting still. This is a guy who moved 50 times in his life. I got him to sit still for an hour. I think that's one of my greatest accomplishments so far. Here we go. Ready? Like roll up your sleeves, man. One more final punch I'm going to have you throw. And that's if you can inspire my audience to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams, what would you tell them?
Question your situation. This is in front of me. What is it trying to teach me? I have that leader that's in my face. What can I take away from them that's good? And what can I take on board and say that I'm never going to do? Ask, question the situation. Hey, Mom, why are you cutting off the ends of the meatloaf? Well, you got to cut off the ends of the meatloaf. Well, why? Oh, her mom. Oh, yeah, I definitely cut off the ends of the meatloaf. Well, why? Well, Grandma cut off the ends of the meatloaf. Hey, Grandma, why'd you cut off the ends of the meatloaf? Well, the pan I had wasn't big enough to fit the full-size meatloaf. Why are you doing the thing you're doing? Why are you blowing your paycheck at the bar every weekend? Is there something magical in a bar that's going to make you feel whole as a person? Or if that's just what you've been doing, why are you doing it? I showed my daughter, she turned 18 yesterday, which I can hardly believe. She went and spent $120 getting her nails done with a friend of hers, getting her nails done.
Yeah.
And I said, how long did it last? She was like, 4 days. I was like, what does $120 look like invested over between now and the time you're 65? Turns out it's $1.8 million if you invest $120 a month. Why are you doing the thing you're doing? First off, ladies, no guy gives a crap about what your nails look like. Never have, never will. It's for you. It's for the girls you hang around with. Don't kid yourself. Why are you doing the thing that you're doing? Question it.
Yeah.
Is it providing value to your life? Is that friend you've been talking to for 20 years provide you any value at all? I'm not saying do or don't be friends with them. I'm saying, what's the value?
Is there times the quick hit that feels good, whether it's getting your nails done or going to get a drink or whatever it might be? Typically, if it comes fast, it leaves fast. And then all of a sudden you're left with a void. And that's when people get in some trouble. It's when depression happens, when there's a void of activity. Depression happens when there's a void of money or something that is caused over, and you just keep getting these quick hits, and you can't live quick hit after quick hit because it'll catch up to you.
It
So
does.
yeah, especially if you're talking about $120 invested. What was the age from 17 to 65?
18 to 65 is $1.8 million at 10%, which is not unreasonable.
I got to stop doing my nails every 4 days.
I'm telling you what, invest in the things that last. And if you invest in yourself, you will always get a guaranteed return.
Ooh, wow. There's another mic drop. Invest in yourself. Man, I wrote down here, question the situation, understand why. You're joking around talking about meatloaf, but it's the serious part of that is when you understand why, right? Now you start to get to your purpose. If you know why you do something, that's called your purpose, and that's fulfillment. If you do something to complete tasks because someone else tells you to do it, the fulfillment level is almost zero, right? It's the guy who's got to clean a toilet for $10 an hour right now. But if you told him, like, if he had a different purpose connected to the company that he's working for, or whatever, his family, or he, every $10 he makes is saving up for his kid with a medical bill, his purpose has changed, right? So understanding it wasn't about the meatloaf getting chopped off, it was because now it fits in the pan. Okay, that's just one small situation. What happens when you're talking about a business? Why do we do this? Why do we send 4 emails when we could put one email out with 3 links in it so everyone could see the content? We just saved ourselves 5 minutes times 4 people times a week. We just found that you can take an extra vacation day this year to be with your family. Would you like that? Shit, I never thought about that, right? But it was just
Yeah.
thinking about why we do it. Because so many times people just go, just tell me what to do. Tell me what
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
Well, then you're just a robot.
If you're a CEO or an executive director and you spend all day putting out fires and you love the feeling, you're doing it wrong because
Mhm.
your policies, your procedures, your expectations aren't set well enough for
Yeah,
your troops to do it on their own.
to execute. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
If
Can
you're
you
finding
can you
yourself,
win sometimes by not by your game plan being a crumbled sheet of paper, and sometimes you can land it. But man, what about you're not going to stack up very well against a well prepared force that's coming your way.
yeah, why did Tom Brady win the Super Bowl?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Why has he won 7 of them?
Yeah.
It's not because he hoped and prayed the coach wouldn't call him when Drew Bledsoe went down. It's
Uh-huh.
because he was prepared, more prepared than any other quarterback in the league.
Right.
And
Yeah.
he
And then
has
and
done
then
that
then
for
when
the
he
last
was
20 plus
given
years.
then he was given the keys, and he just continued to be. There's a cool story, quick thing on Tom is he was, before he was even known, he was the 199th draft pick of that year. We know, round 6. He was coming into the training facility, and Harrison, what was his name? No, what was the number 37? Harrison on the defense. Why am I struggling with his
I'm
name
a
right now?
Vikings fan. You guys stole Stephon Diggs from me this year. I don't know what to say to you right
Oh
now.
my God. Well, I'll just say thank you so you can say you're welcome. But no, the defender on the Patriots was the same guy who was defending that helmet catch. But this guy was like the first player in every morning at the Patriots facility. And he started to notice when he was getting there, he was no longer the first guy in. Tom Brady was hanging out, and Tom Brady was a no, like, who is this guy? Is that the new punter? He didn't know. And all of a sudden he figured out, oh, that's Tom, our third string quarterback. So then Harrison shows up 1 hour, like 15 minutes earlier the next day, and Tom's still there, and he shows up 15 more minutes earlier. And Tom started to feel this dude is changing his arrival time, and he just would never let him get there first. And this was before he was like the third string quarterback on the team.
It's about preparation. It's about doing the things you need to do to be successful. I
Uh,
posted a picture of my schedule today in my group, not because I'm bragging or doing anything like that. I want to show people what it takes to put some of this stuff together. Like, Mike, you did me the favor of sliding left 30 minutes so I can make sure I have time in between interviews. Because as soon as I'm done here, I'm going to
mhm.
be live on TV on the
Yeah.
Gratitude Unfiltered show. And then I've got
Very
another
cool.
meeting with a first timer. And then I'm interviewing Asha Curran, who is the founder and CEO of Giving Tuesday later today.
Yeah.
And then I've got another call to talk about a nonprofit conference I'm putting together. And then I'm meeting someone else new today.
Yeah.
And that's all during the school day because I'm working home right now for the
Yeah.
Navy. And they don't have me doing a whole lot.
I'm the primer gig, it's like you go play at the corner bar so then you can go play the arena. He's he's stopping on an hour for my show. No, man, I'm
Yeah.
gonna check that out. I love everything you're doing. We talk about gratitude. You said you're gonna be on the show Gratitude Unfiltered. I don't have my mug is being washed as we speak, so I don't have it, but it's be great. There you go, your branding. Be great and be grateful. I say it at the end of my show. I say it at the end of every email. And I wake up in gratitude and go to bed in gratitude. What 3 things are you most grateful for?
The 3 biggest choices in my life. I'm so grateful for my beautiful wife. We hit 20-year anniversary this summer.
Wow.
The Navy.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Thank you so much. The Navy, which I am going to hit 21 years in the Navy this summer,
Mm.
and my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, who I'm hitting way more than 20 years with. If you don't have hope, if you don't have a prayer, maybe you should start praying, and you'll get the hope that you need. because we can't do anything
Mhm.
if there's not hope in our lives.
Mhm.
If there's no hope, you don't plan for the future. You don't think you have a future without
Right.
hope. You got
Yeah.
to have hope
You
to
don't have
have
a fighting chance, right, without that level of hope. The word that comes to my mind, Travis, is, and this is when my life really changed a couple years ago when I was going through some tough times. I was always kind of questioning, God, and whether I believed, but I was like questioning why I believed, and still, you're still not 100% in the game at that point. So I remember I was driving and just thinking, man, like that hope was gone, and it was just like, am I going to get to Friday? How the hell do I get to Friday? And I finally just surrendered. And I said, you know what, man, God has a plan for me. I'm here. I'm a soldier in his army. He wants me to be somewhere. And I just said, man, like, you point me in the right direction. He's pointing me here. He's pointing me to Mic'd Up podcast. He's pointing me to my business. He's pointed me to my now girlfriend. He's pointed me closer to my mom and my family, and just being present in the things that he wants me to be in. And sometimes I feel like I get derailed and I got to recenter. But without surrendering, we feel like we have too much control. And if you feel like hopeless and you're controlling your hopelessness, man, that's tough. That's a tough road to be dancing on. So anyone who's, you know, w- Travis and I can't do it for you, but if you're listening right now and you feel like you need a little push, quiet yourself, quiet your mind, turn all the electronics off in your room, and just go sit and see what happens when you feel you're surrendering to something greater than you. That could be the universe. We in particular have God in our lives, and there's nothing even remotely close to giving you that hit on life. Talking about getting those little hits. This is a lifetime. What a phenomenal interview, man. That was really well done. Thank you so much for being vulnerable, because we don't give full value to our audience if we're surface level. So you came on and you really packed a lot of information in the hour that we just spent together. And I want people to really check out your podcast, because you do a nice job. I know that you spend a lot of time doing it. Don't be fooled. He doesn't just press record and disappear. He prepares. He's really articulate, and he's the architect at the Nonprofit Architect. Anything you'd like to add before you head off to the next one, man?
Thanks so much for the opportunity. I had a really joyful and wonderful conversation. You do a great job yourself. And anyone listening out there in need of a little hope, connect with Mike. We don't do this just for funsies. We want you to reach out to us directly. Connect with Mike, connect with yourself. If you're like, holy crap, Travis, I love that story. I want you on my show. Hey, I want to be on your show. Let's set that up and get that done.
Likewise, man. Thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers, man.
I love you guys, and thank you so much for tuning in. Check out more show notes and information on each episode at mikeduppodcast.com, MIKED uppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.